ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। रीडिंग फ्रॉम श्रीमद् भागवतम। By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 26. King Puranjan goes to the forest to hunt. So, yesterday was a very detailed purport. First three shlokas, and then fourth and fifth we have seen. Text 6. तीर्थेषु प्रतिदृष्टेषु राजा मेध्यान् पशुन्वने यावदर्थ अमलं लुब्धो हन्यादिति नियम्यते. Translation.
If a king is too attracted to eating flesh, he may, according to the directions of the revealed scriptures on sacrificial performances, go to the forest and kill some animals that are recommended for killing. One is not allowed to kill animals unnecessarily or without restrictions. The Vedas regulate animal killing to stop the extravagance of foolish men influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. Purport. The question may be raised why a living being should be restricted in sense gratification. If a king, to learn how to kill, may go to the forest and kill animals, why should a living entity who has been given senses not be allowed unrestricted sense gratification? At the present moment, this argument is put forward even by so called Swami and yogis who publicly say that because we have senses, we must satisfy them by sense gratification. These foolish swamis and yogis, however, do not know the injunctions of the Shastras. Indeed, sometimes these rascals come out to defy the Shastras. They even publicly announce that there should be no more Shastras. Sorry, there should be no more Shastras, no more books. Just come to me, they say, and I shall touch you, and you will become immediately spiritually advanced. Because demoniac people want to be cheated, so many cheaters are present to cheat them. At the present moment, in this age of Kali Yuga, the entire human society has become an assembly of cheaters and cheated. For this reason, the Vedic scriptures have given us the proper directions for sense gratification. Everyone is inclined in this age to eat meat and fish, drink liquor, and indulge in sensual life. But according to the Vedic injunction, sensual life is allowed only in marriage. Meat eating is allowed only when the animal is killed and offered before the goddess Kali. And intoxication is allowed only in a restricted way. In this verse, the word niyamyate indicates that all these things, namely animal killing, intoxication, and sensuality, should be regulated. Regulations are meant for human beings, not for animals. The traffic regulations on the street telling people to keep to the right or left are meant for human beings, not for animals. If an animal violates such a law, he is never punished, but a human being is punished. The Vedas are not meant for the animals, but for the understanding of human society. A person who indiscriminately violates the rules and regulations given by the Vedas is liable to be punished. One should therefore not enjoy his senses according to his lusty desires, but should restrict himself according to the regulative principles given in the Vedas. If a king is allowed to hunt in a forest, It is not for his sense gratification. We cannot simply experiment in the art of killing. If a king, being afraid to meet rogues and thieves, kills poor animals and eats their flesh comfortably at home, he must lose his position. Because in this age, kings have such demoniac propensities. Monarchy is abolished by laws of nature in every country. People have become so degraded in this age that on the one hand they restrict polygamy, and on the other hand they hunt for women in so many ways. Many business concerns publicly advertise that topless girls are available in this club or in that shop. Thus women have become instruments of sense enjoyment in modern society. The Vedas enjoin, however, that if a man has the propensity to enjoy more than one wife, as is sometimes the propensity for men in the higher social order, such as the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, and even sometimes the Shudras, he is allowed to marry more than one wife. Marriage means taking complete charge of a woman and living peacefully without debauchery. At the present moment, however, debauchery is unrestricted. Nonetheless, society makes a law that one should not marry more than one wife. This is typical of a demoniac society. Hare Krishna.
Text 6. Tirtheshu. So, in the holy places, pratidrushteshu. So, here it is. Raja medhyan pashunvane. If a king is attracted to eating flesh, too attracted to eating flesh, then a sacrificial performance is to be engaged, and he should go to the forest, kill some animals. Which animals? Which are recommended for killing. This recommendation for killing are based on the the utility and the population of particular animal. Sometimes when there are excessive tigers, then the king is allowed to go and shoot the tiger, kill the tiger, hunt for the tiger, right? The Vedic Vedas regulate animal killing to stop the extravagance of the foolish men influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. Niyamyate. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada very deeply focuses on the word niyamyate. Srila Prabhupada begins with the purport saying that the question may be asked why a living entity should be restricted in sense gratification. Right? You have the senses, just enjoy. Because the senses are given by the Lord, facility is given by the Lord, so why there should not be unrestricted sense gratification? And this is a question, and not only this has become, as a general question, many times people have this theological question that we have senses. Like, there is a classic example uh, of somebody approaching Srila Prabhupada and asking for unrestricted sense enjoyment. And Srila Prabhupada explains this, that whenever you perform unrestricted sense enjoyment, you are invariably will be doing himsa to other living entities. You cannot have unrestricted number of people doing unrestricted sense enjoyment, right? So whenever, like Ravana, the Ravana mentality, like he used to just modern times Bollywood to ha kar ya na kar, like that it is. So Ravana used to pick up Deva Kanya, Raja Kanya, Rishi Kanya. Yes or no, he used to pick up, right? And so he did his unrestricted sense gratification, but the very word Ravana means one who makes people cry. So one cannot do unrestricted sense gratification unless one becomes harmful and himsak to other personality. Srila Prabhupada says not only living entities, not only the ordinary people, but there are so many swamis and yogis who are publicly saying that we must gratify the senses, right? Sambhog se samadhi tak. Yeah, there are so many other this thing that simply enjoy the life. Life is for enjoyment. Very hedonistic philosophy. And you say, no, but Shastras say there are what is the activity to be done, activity not to be done. There are restrictions in the Shastras. Tasmat Shastra Pramanam te Karya Akarya Vyavastito. And people say, oh, just reject the Shastra. Simply come to me, I will touch you, all your sins will go away. And this is, you will become very spiritually advanced. Just pay my fees of $1,000. And Prabhupada says, these are Now, Prabhupada's favorite words here for such cheaters. These are the fools and rascals who have this kind of philosophy. And why such people are there? Because people also want to be cheated. So in Kali Yuga, it is the assembly of cheaters and cheated. People also don't want. See, what is assembly of cheaters and cheated? Why do you think any activity? Why do you think neat papers are being made publicly available? Right? Because there are parents who wants their children to go to AIMS, KEM, BJ without the child studying, and they say that okay, 10 lakh is not a big thing for me. I can always pay 20 lakh rupees also for one paper, and I can do it. Why there are some jokers who go in the name of influencers and will crack the dirtiest of the jokes, right? You must have heard those Pranit More, Sejal Pawar, and all this garbage nonsense. Why? Because there is audience for such a market, and this is the Kali Yuga problem. Therefore, Prabhupada says this is the assembly of cheaters and cheated, right? This doctor from KEM, Sejal Pawar, she was cracking such page 3 third class jokes on the people who have donated their bodies for the medical students so that they can learn anatomy and learn the postmortem and other things. Such dirty jokes. Why? Because there is the requirement, and people clap it, and you have suddenly lakhs of followers on Instagram. Correct? So this is the typical lakshan of Kali Yuga. There is assembly of cheaters and cheated. Because demoniac people wants to be cheated, there are so many cheaters available. What a classic word. Assembly of cheaters and cheated. And this is the natural inclination towards Kali Yuga. And even, I mean, is a part of Kali Yuga, these tendencies may overcome us also sometimes. At least they become very attractive to us. And therefore, we should have a very proper compass, the moral compass, where we, the categorically remain away from such temptations. It may come anytime. It may come at, anything, in any this thing, in medicine, there is like so much money just goes in a cut money. Everybody knows that, right? So one may be tempted for a quick success, but one has to be restricted. Regulations purposes are meant for the human beings and not for the animals. Just like the traffic signal is there, that is for the human beings. If a cat crosses the signal or the dog is not following the signal, they will not be penalized. They will not be given punishment because and why? Because and the cats and dogs also will die. The animal death on the roads, right? Because the human life they follow the rules and regulations, and therefore there is these rules and regulations are for the humans. Correct. Sometimes the king is allowed to hunt in the forest, but that is also not for sense gratification. There is excessive desire to hunt, then the king is allowed, and they will say that, oh, go to this particular forest, and they will count the animals. They will say which animal is excess in number, and they will be allowed to hunt only for that animal. There are references in Mahabharata where there is a Pashu Ganana is happening, and the all the kings are going to the forest counting the pashus. They had their own ways of counting the pashus. Currently, we count with GPS and everything, and they will say, "Oh, this particular element is excessively troubling other elements. Go and hunt." And then it trained the warriors in the war. They could see the blood, they could fight with the animal, so on and so forth. But in this age, whole thing has become very, very demoniac. And therefore, this is restricted in Kali Yuga. Srila Prabhupada further mentions that it is the irony in Kali Yuga. What is the irony? The irony is that on the one hand, they restrict polygamy. On the other hand, their people are hunting for women in so many ways. So in the previous ages, the polygamy was allowed, but in Kali Yuga, it is not allowed, especially under the state rule. Right? Under the Shastric rule, it is allowed, but under the state rule, it is not allowed. And and therefore, Prabhupada says this propensity the man will be trying to fulfill in so many different ways, trying to just make the whole thing degraded. And Prabhupada gives some example here. And these are the advertisements, This is this is what the epistine files and all these things are happening is, right? And therefore Vedas enjoined that even if a man has a propensity, then and has a resources, he can marry more than one wife. But again, so in Kali Yuga, in Kali Yuga, especially by the state law, for the Hindus, it is restricted, and it's a good restriction in a way, because previously when polygamy was allowed, that time the male female ratio was skewed towards female, and to curtail the adultery, right, in the society, the polygamy was allowed. But nowadays the male female ratio is skewed towards male. There are more, for every 1,000 boys born, hardly 860 girls are being born. Okay, so that ratio is skewed towards the female, and therefore it is absolutely not a requirement now. Text 7. य एवं कर्म नियतं विद्वान् कुर्वीत मानवः कर्मणा तेन राजेन्द्र ज्ञानेन न सलिप्यते. Translation.
Narada Muni continued to speak to King Krishnabhairs. My dear king, any person who works according to the directions of the Vedic scriptures does not become involved in fruitive activities. Purport. Just as a government may issue trade licenses in order for its citizens to act in a certain way, the Vedas contain injunctions that restrain and regulate all of our fruitive activities. All living entities have come into this material world to enjoy themselves. Consequently, the Vedas are given to regulate sense enjoyment. One who enjoys his senses under the Vedic regulative principles does not become entangled in the actions and reactions of his activities. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.9, Yajnartha Karmanaha, one should act only for the performance of yajna or to satisfy Lord Vishnu. Anyatra loko yama karma bandhana. Otherwise, any action will produce a reaction by which the living entity will be bound. A human being is specially meant to attain liberation from the bondage of birth, death, old age, and disease. He is therefore directed by the Vedic regulative principles to work in such a way that he may fulfill his desires for sense gratification and at the same time gradually become freed from material bondage. Action according to such principles is called knowledge. Indeed, the word Veda means knowledge. The words Jnanena na salipyate indicate that following the Vedic principles, one does not become involved in the actions and reactions of his fruitive activities. Everyone is therefore advised to act in terms of the Vedic injunctions and not irresponsibly. When a person within a state acts according to the laws and licenses of the government, he does not become involved in criminal activities. Man-made laws, however, are always defective because they are made by men who are prone to committing mistakes, being illusioned, cheating, and having imperfect senses. The Vedic instructions are different because they do not have these 4 defects. Vedic instructions are not subject to mistakes. The knowledge of the Vedas is knowledge received directly from God, and there is consequently no question of illusion, cheating, mistakes, or imperfect senses. Sorry. All Vedic knowledge is perfect because it is received directly from God by the Parampara disciplic succession. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1, it is said, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavavye. The original creature of this universe, known as the Adi Kavi or Lord Brahma, was instructed by Krishna through the heart. After receiving these Vedic instructions from Lord Krishna himself, Brahma distributed the knowledge by the Parampara system to Narada, and Narada in turn distributed the knowledge to Vyasa. In this way, Vedic knowledge is perfect. If we act according to the Vedic knowledge, there is no question of being involved in sinful activities. Hare Krishna.
Narad Muni now says, Karmana Tena Rajendra, that my dear king, O Rajendra. So he has come to address Prachina Barihishat. And at the same time, very, very magnanimous in his speech. Right. O Rajendra. Any person who works according to the directions of the Vedic in scriptures, Shastra, does not become involved in fruitive activities. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that importance of acting according to Shastra, Tasmat Shastra Pramanam te. Right. What is the Praman? Pramana is the Shastra Praman. Just like government may issue various trade licenses, right? Similarly, Vedas contain instructions for restrictions and regulation of all the activities. What is allowed, what is not allowed, it is decided by government within the state. Similarly, what is allowed and what is not allowed on the universal scale is described by the Vedas. Also, Vedas understand the need of dharma, artha, kama, moksha and give regulative guidance towards sense gratification. And therefore, the basic injunction of the Vedas is the activities should be performed in such a way that one is engaged at the same time, one does not get implicated in the laws of karma. Right? We had seen a couple of days ago. There is karma, pious activities. There is vikarma, viruddha karma, which are impious activities. But doing karma or vikarma, one is implicated either with the golden shackle or with the iron shackle, right? By the papa or punya. So the art of working is yoga. What is yoga? Yoga karma su kaushalam. What is that kaushalya is yajnarthat karmano. One should perform activities as an offering to the Supreme Lord, to satisfy the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Otherwise, anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Otherwise, it will lead to karma bandhana, right? So one has to work in such a way that one will fulfill his desires. At the same time, one will gradually become freed from the material bondage. This is the beautiful action, right? The how one has to really act. Prabhupada says the Veda means knowledge. And this knowledge is coming from, the Vedic knowledge is coming from the Supreme Lord directly. It is free from the human defects. Which are the human defects? There are 4 human defects. Imperfect senses. Imperfect senses, then it leads to be illusioned. Then it leads to committing mistakes. And then leads to cover up the mistakes, cheating propensity. So imperfect senses, somebody may say, oh, our senses are imperfect, but we have instruments which are more perfect. 2 things, instruments may be more perfect, but the instruments are created by imperfect senses, and ultimately the knowledge which is received through instrument is also perceived by the imperfect senses, right? And therefore it just magnifies one's limitation, right, than removing the limitation on a bigger scale. So imperfect senses, that leads to illusion. Sometimes we may have CT in the pressure cooker ka CT in the kitchen, and that sound may seem like some train is passing by, right? And then you realize that it was not a train, it was a pressure cooker ka CT. So this is to be illusioned. And then there is, that leads to committing mistakes. And to hide the mistake, there is cheating propensity. So the human law, and there are so many grand examples, right? There is for the cheating propensity in the scientific community, there is an example of a pill down man. So Darwin proposed his theory in 1920s odd period, and there was only problem in 1932. They realized that there is some missing link, that animals, apes are also there, humans are also there. So you need some humanoid kind of a ape which was looking like ape and human, and they called it missing link. And it became a big research, and finally 1912 or so, at Piltdown, it's a place in UK, they found a man which was like a humanoid. It was like exact transition point between ape and a human. He had a jaw like a human, body like an ape, and they said, yeah, this is the man. And that this Piltdown man became the cause of millions of people becoming atheistic. They said, yeah, that proves Darwin's theory. Right? You don't need God, it's just evolution, it's just chemicals evolving from one to another. 1952, 40 years later, scientists, when they again revisited this Piltdown man in the museum, they realized it was actually the human skeleton which was filed in such a way that it looked like the transition point. And what became a Piltdown man is now became famous as a Piltdown fraud. Right? So this is called as cheating propensity. Right? But The Vedic knowledge is free from these human tendencies. There is no cheating in the Vedas, and therefore Vedas, they are called as Veda Mata, right? Mata will never cheat, right? So that is the Veda Mata, and the Veda Mata guides one to Janmadiyasya Yatonvayaditaratas Chartheshu Vidnyaswarat. Mata gives the address of Pita, and this knowledge was revealed in the heart of Brahmaji. And thus, the Vedic knowledge is the perfect knowledge, and it has to be received in Parampara system. Text 8. So we begin before the text 8, some part we'll read. Today evening we have the Bhagavad Manthan, part 2, episode 2. Okay. It will be at the temple, evening 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock we are starting. 7 to 8:30 is first prasadam, because many devotees are coming from the job and everything. And 8 to 9:30 we will be discussing 24th chapter of the 4th canto, 24 and 25. These two chapters. 24 only largely we'll discuss. Next time we'll take the Puranjan in one go. So everybody is welcome, whoever is available. Text 8. अन्यथा कर्म कुर्वाणो मानारूढ़ो निबध्यते गुणप्रवाह पतितो नष्टप्रज्ञो व्रजन्त्यगः. Translation.
Otherwise, a person who acts whimsically falls down due to false prestige. Thus, he becomes involved in the laws of nature, which are composed of the three qualities goodness, passion, and ignorance. In this way, a living entity becomes devoid of his real intelligence and becomes perpetually lost in the cycle of birth and death. Thus, he goes up and down from a microbe in stool to a high position in the Brahmaloka planet. Purport. There are many important words in this verse. The first is anyatha, otherwise, which indicates one who does not care for the Vedic rules and regulations. The rules and regulations laid down in the Vedas are called Shastra Vidhi. Bhagavad Gita clearly states that one who does not accept the Shastra Vidhi or rules and regulations mentioned in the Vedic scriptures and acts whimsically or puffed up with false pride never attains perfection in this life, nor does he attain happiness or liberation from the material condition. यह शास्त्र विधिम उत्सृज्य वर्तते कारतः न स सिद्धिम अवाप्नोति न सुखम न परम गतिम. He who discards spiritual injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. Bhagavad Gita 16.23.
Yeah, so we'll read in section. Otherwise, anyatha karma kurvano, a person who acts whimsically falls down due to false prestige. Guna pravaha patito, where he falls down? He falls down to guna pravaha patito. Very, very powerful verse this is, right? A person who acts whimsically falls down due to false prestige, thus becomes involved in the laws of nature, and three guna pravaha patito, three qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance, and is perpetually lost in the cycle of birth and death. Brahmatam upariyada. Very, very powerful verse. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains there are many important words in this verse. The one is anyatha. Anyatha means otherwise. People just reject the Vedas. They say, who says that Vedas? All these Puranatli Vangi, and in Maharashtra, this anti-Vedic movement for last 40-50 years in the Dravid Desh, in the South India, the Periyar nonsense has gone too long. I mean, Hindus are like too tolerant for all these nonsensical ideas. And they reject the Vedas without any authority, without any understanding, not even argue also. And such people are called as, what they are doing is, they are paving their way for perpetual destruction. Yah Shastra Vidhim Usrujya, one who gives up the Vedas, Vedic instruction, Vartate Kamakarataha, acts whimsically. Nasa Siddhim Avapnoti, he will not get any Siddhi. Na Sukham, na Paramgati. Neither Sukha also, neither a greater destination in the next life. So once again, today evening we have Bhagavad Manthan. So all this is specifically for the devotees who are attending the sport training in the morning. Bhagavad Manthan is once in a month program where we revisit all the readings of Srimad Bhagavatam that we have done in last month. And typically we will go pastime wise. So today we will be discussing more elaborately about Rudra Geetam. That's chapter 24. Next month we will discuss about the story of Puranjanakyan. Right. So this is like we study Srimad Bhagavatam daily, and also we do the revision here. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, is it online or offline, Prabhu?
This is offline, but we will make it available online also. But it is
Okay.
offline, proper program it is, with concluding with Prasadam, Kirtan,
Oh.
everything. Okay.
Okay. If it is online, please send that link.
Yes, Mataji, this is available on the sport link only.
Oh.
Sport app, there is another section called as Bhagavad Mantra.
Oh. Okay. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Prabhu.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada.